Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this WebEx on optimizing profits by finding your true net price. What we're going to talk about today is about putting in the basic building blocks to support pricing decisions. And those pricing decisions could be strategic or tactical. So we're talking about having the information to have the confidence to make those decisions. And I know I've got quite a mixed audience today looking at the delegates that registered. We've got some people who have been working in pricing a long time, and we've got people who are probably new to pricing, curious about the pricing arena. But I think we'll all agree that pricing is an emotive subject. We believe in the company everyone owns it, but no one owns it. It's seen as a risk. It's seen as a risk to change it, especially by, say, the sales teams. Therefore, the numbers get challenged. If you haven't got confidence about them, it's very difficult to make changes in the organisation. So we believe a clear set of consistent and accurate data that's bought into by the organisation so that they believe it's accurate helps overcome some of these barriers. And we also believe the process that we're going to take you through today usually identify some quick win opportunities and opportunities to improve profits. As Anna said, please ask questions as we go through the presentation. I might answer some of them as we go along, if I can see them in the box, or I might wait to the end to answer them. Okay. I'll get the quick 30-second advertisement over now. Pricing Solutions, we're an international consultancy firm specialising in pricing. We've been going for 20 years. We work in many different industries. We work in B2B, B2C. We've got global clients like GE, Coke, Bupa and Exxon, just to name a few. Most of the team, the vast majority of the team are senior people who have worked as pricers in industry themselves. So to give you an example, my background is I was global, before I moved into consultancy, I was global head of pricing for DHL, and I was actually the first person to have that title. And the first things we did, I did in that role and the team did, was some of the things we're going to talk about today. Because once we started that new role and that new function, we had to have clear visibility of what was actually happening with pricing in all the different markets we operated in, for all the different customers, all the different products. So a lot of the process I'm going to talk about today is what I did in my first pricing role with DHL. So the objectives of the webinar today are to understand the value of getting down to understanding your true net prices in an organisation. What benefits can it bring? Some of the techniques to actually get at those net prices. What sort of data you need? How do you make sure it's accurate and actionable? And maybe some of the technology tools to help you along with that process. Now, as I said before, we've got quite a mixed attendee list on this webinar. As I said, we've got quite a few people exposed to pricing for a long time. They will have seen this chart or something similar many times. But there's quite a few people who are quite new to pricing. It's the first time they maybe looked at the discipline. So I'm just going to cover a few basics off first. If you think about an average organisation, I've created one just for the example here. Let's assume it's turning over £100 million. And let's assume the overheads for that organisation are around £15 million. And then the sales and marketing costs and distribution costs are around 30, and then the variable costs are around 47. And the company makes a profit of about 8 million. So nice, easy maths. So it's 8% net profit. Now, from working with many organisations, some organisations make a lot more profit than this. A lot of organisations we work with work on thinner margins, could be down to 2 or 3%. But on average, probably across the UK, about a net profit of 8% represents the average company. Now, can just add 1% through doing something on price, usually a price change, and I'll come back to a volume, that just a volume in a second, but a price change just falls straight through to the bottom line. It doesn't impact the cost lines, it doesn't impact the variable costs, it doesn't impact the overheads, it falls straight through to the bottom line. So if you're only making 8%, you make a 1% price change, you've got a 12% improvement in profit. And most organisations, if they're quoted in the city, if they can grow their profits by 12% year on year, they seem to be very, very successful. But now the thing about pricing is that over the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of organisations have now started to look at pricing as a way to improve their profitability. So over the last 10 to 20 years, organisations have spent a lot of time looking at costs, trying to manage costs down, trying to be more efficient, improving processes. But a lot of organisations, a lot of larger organisations, are now realising that there's not many techniques about improving the quality of your top line or improving, say, price performance and getting this impact. And there are many ways of getting that 1%. And I know there's a lot of fear about changing price because, I changed my price by 1%, but what happens to my volume? But there are many different ways of getting that 1%. I've listed a few down the right-hand side. And a lot of them are not necessarily about changing the price or just putting in a price increase. A lot of it can be about controlling and managing the prices that you have, just keeping customers to the conditions you have, or being a bit clever around pricing segmentation or understanding value of your products and services, or having a proper process for doing your price increases. But all these initiatives actually need, to take them forward with some confidence, need good, solid data. When we work with companies, we see that their sort of level of we can group their level of capability to 5 levels. So we have this sort of roadmap to the sort of to world-class pricing excellence, and we can sort of see companies falling into these sort of 5 levels of capability. The bottom level here, we call level 1, it's basically when you've got an organisation, there's probably nobody really responsible for pricing in the organisation, and then something will happen in the marketplace, they'll have to respond to that, and what will happen is it will be all hands to the pumps. So we call this level, this baseline level, we call it the firefighter step. So companies just react to the market, they'll put the fire out, the issue will go away, but it'll come back in a year's time. It's not a good place to be. It's not a good place to be for your customers because you've probably got a lot of differences in the prices you're offering to your customers. They become suspicious of the pricing being offered to them, and it's probably costing the organisation money not to have some control and process in place or to have some infrastructure around managing pricing. The next level is where organisations start. At level 2, we call it the policeman step, where they start to put some structure in around pricing. And at this point, it's mainly around what we're going to talk about today, actually understanding, well, what are our prices by customer, by product, by market? Do we have a discounting policy? Is the discounting policy being followed? Most organisations want to jump to level 3, and that's the best place to be. It's the place to go. Level 3 is about understanding value. So it's not just having control in place, it's about understanding, well, how do our products and services compare to the competition? Can we charge a premium for them? Are our sales team equipped to communicate that value? Can we price differently by segment? It is where most marketeers want to get to, and some organisations jump to there, but we advocate getting in place the good control processes first, because what can happen is you can do some great marketing or do some new great product development, really understand the value of the products to your customers, launch those products, but a lot of that good value can just get discounted away or leaked away if you haven't got the controls and processes in place to support them. So we advocate, if you're starting at level 1, to move up the scale by first sorting out level 2, And today is very much about level 2 pricing, about understanding what your net prices are, your real true prices are across your customers and your products, so you can compare them, you can benchmark them. We do have some clients working with a client at the moment who really good level 3 prices, and they're in the pharma industry. In that industry, you really need to know what the relative value of your drugs are to the customer and to the physicians. But now they're having to go backwards because a lot of that value is being discounted away by their sales teams. Level 4, so the data and the processes we're going to talk about today support all levels. So level 4 optimization process, this is more about bringing level 2 and level 3 together. And it's where you might be looking at pricing by subsegment, and also being able to maybe check if you're being able to see very quickly. So you've got some really good data, some really good analytics to understand how those subsegments are responding to your price changes. So companies reach level 4 when they've probably been doing level 2 for quite a while. They've got some good data and information. They understand the value of their products and services, and they're really optimizing that, fine-tuning that. Level 5 is a discussion for another day. It's more about where the organization really sees pricing as key to the organization's success, and senior management really supports it. But what we're going to talk about today, building that pricing infrastructure, helps the organization move up, or building that data analysis capability helps the organization move up these 5 levels. And also, if you think about the pricing process, there's 4 steps in the pricing process. So we have defining a pricing strategy, so doing all the good stuff about understanding the competition, understanding your costs, understanding your segments, understanding how your products bring additional value to your customers. There's the process of setting prices. So once you've decided what that strategy would be, how do you turn that into prices, discounting structures? How do you simulate what the impact of that is? So data supports each step of this pricing process. When you execute, so you set your pricing levels, set your discounting structures and guidelines, the sales team have to implement. So how well are they implementing? Are they following the process? What variances are there against the discounting structures? And then another key element is then monitoring the success. So are our prices working in the marketplace? Where are we winning? Where are we losing? So that good data set supports all these 4 steps in the process. And obviously, the analysis at this end of the monitor process feeds back into defining strategy. So understanding your true real net prices, being able to analyze them by product, customer, segment is critically important to support these pricing processes. So why is it difficult to understand what your true net prices are? As I said before, a lot of the accounting systems that we have are very much built around cost management, and a lot of the focus over the last 20 years about cost management, process improvement. The sort of capability and the rules about registering revenue, and maybe things that maybe help you improve the yield from your revenue, are not that clear. So some of these things might be clear in your accounting system if you've got SAP. So straightforward discounts like invoice discounting might be clear on the invoice, or some special discount for maybe buying more than one product, that type of thing. So those things might be clear, but other things that salespeople are using as levers to either get more volume from a customer, close the deal with a customer, or reward loyalty are not always that obvious. So some of those examples are maybe waiving the delivery charge. Another example is annual volume rebates. A lot of organizations might offer a discount up front, but they also offer some enticement for the customer to buy a certain volume by the end of the year. And usually those rebates aren't in the billing system. They're sort of done on a spreadsheet somewhere. The accountants accrue for them. They're not very easy to see. giving away free goods rather than discounting. Again, if there's any good rules about that, how you record that and record it against the customer, it's very hard to see what that investment is. The other area is financing. So if you might give the customer 30 days, you might give them 60 days, 90 days. That's a cost to the organisation. It's a lever, it's a tool that the salesperson's using to close the deal, but it's not very visible usually. It's not very obvious. But these are all things that contribute to what the real true price is. There might be different types of warranties or extended warranties. You might be trading in old products, old computers, cars, or whatever it is, to get an allowance or a discount off a new purchase. And there's in many organisations now, it's not just a product you're selling support and service. So you might be giving away some of that support and service, some consulting to close the deal. And there's many other options here. Some of these things are visible in, say, the SAP system or your accounting system. Others are probably harder to see, but they all are a cost. Maybe this is shown as a cost rather than a discount in your accounting system, but they are levers your salespeople are using to close the deal. So if we're going to compare apples with apples rather than apples and bananas, we need to be able to tease all these things out or be able to identify all these different pricing levers. Now, a common tool for doing this across the pricing community is something called the pricing waterfall. Now, what the pricing waterfall does is to identify all those different discounts and levers so that we can get down to a net price that we can compare across the organisation. So if we're comparing different customers, different products, maybe different countries, we're actually comparing the same thing. Now, the starting point in the waterfall, and there can be some difficulties here, is the list price. And some organisations, we've worked with several, list price doesn't exist, or the list price is actually so far out of the market that it's not relevant. But there's ways and means of overcoming that. But let's assume the list price is a relevant one. And then what we start to do is take off all those different types of discounts. We identify them and we quantify them. And the first ones would probably be the obvious one. So a straightforward volume discount that's on the invoice. And a special discount for taking a new product. All those things are quite visible. So the first few steps are usually quite easy to identify. And then we can reconcile that back to what's on the actual invoice that the customer sees. Then there's some other adjustments that are going on that might be less visible. So I mentioned one before, which could be an annual rebate that's being accrued manually and it's paid to the customer at the end of the year. It could be the free goods, which is hidden somewhere else in the accounts. It could be the waiving of delivery costs. It could be the financing of extra credit. So by doing this, there's two main reasons for doing this type of analysis. One is we want to get to that true net price so that we can compare customers. But the other advantage of doing this is that we're actually putting a value on these things and making them visible. And there's two advantages to that. One is that we can actually say, well, actually, we do spend a lot of money on year-end rebates. Are we really getting value for that? Or are we better off actually giving them the discount up front? So we can start to have that debate. It also makes these pots of money very visible. If you think about the budgeting process, the sales manager is usually, obviously he's asked what his what's going to be his sales budget for the year. Is he going to hit 20 million or whatever his target is? But then a lot of the budgeting process is about, well, how many sales reps is he going to have? What's the travel expenses going to be? What's his hospitality expenses going to be? And you might spend a month or longer. I think we've all suffered from the budgeting processes, going through those numbers. When you actually equate how much the sales manager spends on his salespeople, their bonuses, and their cars, versus how much he actually manages as a sales manager, all these discounts and rebates, it can be a factor of 20 to 1. He could be giving away 20 times as much in discounts and rebates than he's managing in cost. But these things are usually not that visible in the budgeting process. And what we've seen some organisations do is now use this type of analysis to say, okay, you've got a budget of 10 million of discount. It's split between these different ways of discounting and giving incentives to customers. Is this the most effective way? Do you want to change that? We start to manage these different discounting methods. But going back to the other objective is to get down to this net price so we can start to do some comparisons across customers, across products. Now, what can we do with that net price once we've got it? This is it's a standard analysis. It's the first step we do. We call it dispersion analysis. So what we're doing here is we're plotting the sort of average discount given to each of these customers against the volume that they buy. And what you would expect is probably a bit of a pattern like this red line. So obviously the more volume the customer gives you, you would suspect or expect to give them more discount. Now, you can see in this example, the discounts are all over the place. A colleague of mine used to call this the measles chart. It's just dots all over the place. The different colours or the different keys, like the squares, the triangles, things like that, they could be different segments. They could be different sales reps. You can put some different attributes on these things just to look for different sorts of patterns. But what we can see here is we've got quite a few customers down here, very small customers who've got relatively high discounts compared to other customers who are giving far more volume and probably don't deserve these discounts. Now, there's a number of reasons why this can happen. One, it could be basically, poor sales process. It could be these customers used to be over here. They used to be quite large customers, but we've never gone back and challenged them on or had a discussion about their pricing since the volume's dropped. And I think many of you have come across the old reason. Well, the strategic customers, and it's surprising how many strategic customers there are. But the problem with this is that a lot of these customers tend to move jobs. They tend to find out that maybe if you're a customer over here and you move to one of these smaller customers over there, you get the feeling that you were maybe cheated or you didn't negotiate very well. So it causes distrust in the market. We do a lot of pricing research, and one thing that comes out a lot from when customers are talking to us or we're doing research with our customers, they just say we want our pricing to be fair. So this can be quite a dangerous position to be in with this different type of pricing, but you don't really see it or can't really explain it unless you've gone through that pricing waterfall process. So this sort of analysis obviously gives you a starting point to maybe make some changes. So if we only moved a small proportion of these customers down here, so maybe 50% of them, and we improve their price by 5 or 6%, that could be that 1% that you see on the top line. So we're not doing anything dramatic. We're only marginally moving them to the right place, but we actually could have quite a significant improvement in our overall profits. Now, the dispersion analysis is just one. Once we've got down to that net price, and we can understand it by different customers, by the products they buy, by different segments. I'll give some examples of this later. We can do many things with that. So the dispersion analysis is one example. We've probably, working with various customers, identified something like 38 different uses of that data, and you can group them into several areas. One is obviously looking at maybe helping you to set your policy and your pricing structure, understanding if there's compliance. So if you've actually set a price, you've got a discount level that you're getting your sales force to sell in at. Are they using that? Are customers shipping to the profile or buying to the profile that you've offered the price to? That type of thing. Dispersion, I've just covered that, which is really about consistency of your pricing across your customer base and fairness. Another element of that is if you're trading internationally, is pricing corridors. So how different are your prices across different countries? Is there opportunity for grey imports? What are the reasons for those pricing differences? Evolution is more, I touched on this, is more about looking at those steps in that pricing waterfall, all those different types of discounts. Which ones actually give you the best return? So, or are you using the right discounts for the right customers? So actually, does year-end rebates actually work better than giving discounts up front? So it's looking at the efficiency of using those discounts. We also look at things like where are we hitting the sweet spot? If you offer 5-10%, does that make any difference? Do you have to be offering between 10 and 20? Is that where you really get the maximum uplift from customers? If you go above that, does it stop having an effect? So really, where is it really having an impact? Structural is more about understanding the different discount levels. Are there any seasonality issues? And things like that. And obviously, all of this information feeds into your overall pricing strategy. So building that database helps you to do many, many things. Okay. So how do we get there then? I've just got a couple of models here about how we've actually built these types of databases with customers or seen customers build them themselves. We strongly advocate that you build up your data from the lowest level of information. So this means taking your data at sort of sales lines or order lines. So for every time a customer places an order, there's a line there for how many they bought of each product. We strongly advocate you take the data at that level. Why we do that is because if you take it at an aggregated level, it's very hard then to slice it and dice it in the ways that I've discussed, and I'm going to show you some examples. So if we really want to understand by customer, by product, by segment, by time, we need to take the data at that lowest level. Now, we bring that data in. We can either bring that data, and I'll give you another example later, straight from SAP or from a data warehouse. There's some other data feeds that need to be researched. So, as I said before, some of the discounts are in SAP or in your accounting system or your billing system. Others are being done manually elsewhere. There might be a step in the process to take those discounts. We strongly recommend putting it back into your accounting system before putting it into your pricing tool, because then there's some discipline about, do these numbers reconcile? Do they come back to a number that we recognise? And that's another strong recommendation that we make, is that when you build a tool like this, it has to reconcile back to something like your management accounts, because as I discussed before, pricing is a very emotional subject. If you're trying to get people to change, the easiest thing for them to do, if they don't like the change, is to say, well, I don't believe your numbers. But if you've gone through that process of saying, well, these numbers reconcile back to the accounts that you sign off to, get them to agree actually your methodology and approach, then you've got a solid base to move forward. So sometimes we structure a pricing tool like this. You can build it in Excel, Access, or a BI tool you've already got. We recommend there are a couple of tools on the market, QuickView and Tableau. They're good for this. We do have a preference if you ask us. So this is a sort of process for building up those data sources. The next slide is very much just on the same sort of theme, different type of approach. And that last slide, we were taking data directly from the billing system into the pricing tool. A lot of companies prefer to put it in some sort of data staging area. And there's a couple of advantages to this, is that if you're an organisation that maybe has several business units, and a lot of our customers are like this, they bought another organisation or bought several organisations, and it could be even 5 or 6 years ago. They're still running on different systems. The way they treat discounts and their practices is different. So what we suggest is if you want to have a common view of pricing in your pricing tool, the data staging area is used to maybe clean that data and validate that data and put it in a consistent format before putting into your pricing tool. So what what are the project steps? I'm not going to go through this in detail. Anna will send out the slides in the next few days. I just want to just home in on a couple of key points. The first one is probably the first step, this data definition. That's where you really have to put some hard work in and really understand what the data is that in the accounting system, but also being manipulated outside the accounting system. What we tend to find with some organisations, nobody really owns this whole process, right from setting pricing, salespeople setting up prices in the billing system, all the different types of adjustments that are going on. Nobody has a clear view of that. So it does take a bit of time, but it's worth investing in that area and being really clear about the data, how accurate it is, what it really means. That would be tip number one. Tip number two, I touched on this before, is step 5 here, is reconciling the data. So it's really important to reconcile that data back to something everybody understands. Once you've reconciled it, and you've started to produce some results from the tool that you're developing, is go back to people who are going to be the stakeholders of using this tool and get them to review your output. And they're going to challenge it, and you need to get that challenge out first before you start using this data in anger in making pricing decisions. And what we do is we, in most cases, get them to sign off that analysis so that we don't have any of those issues later. Another important step is live testing. So even though you might have got it signed off and you've developed it, you've done the handover with the process, or you're the user yourself, is just use it. Just use it in anger for at least we've got 2 weeks on here, but 2 weeks to a month. Things just come out that you haven't thought about the way you might want the views or the reports to look, some things about the data. So these are some of the key steps in the process to developing your tool. So I've just got a couple of tool examples here, and this just really emphasises that point I made about going as far as possible down to the lowest level of data, because that then helps you build up very useful analysis. So in this tool here, we've got the standard Waterfall. You can see here I can pull analysis by product, I can pull it by customer, I can pull it by sales channel, I can analyse the data by dates. And in this structure here, we've got the products at different levels, so right down to SKU level, up to different product groupings and hierarchies. In this example, it's a customer view, but in the customer view, I can look at an individual customer, I could look at an industry. So the segmentation we've got in here is customer, industry, and customer size. But you could bring into it, but depending on what you have in your database, you could bring in these different types of segmentations. And this is a view of a tool where we've built, basically in the dispersion view, we're building here as much flexibility as possible. So what you can see here is, what are the things I could look at, or what are the things I could change? So I could change, I've got a vertical and horizontal axis, so I can plot different things on those. The size of the bubble could be different. So, and what am I plotting? So in this case, I'm plotting products. But you can see here I could do products, I could do country, I could do customer, products at different levels. And what am I going to show on my axis? So I could show gross profit, net profit, I could show unit price, volume, total volume, or volume for the put selection. So the two axes could be controlled by these two boxes here. I could change those. And then the size of the bubble, or the size of the object on the chart, could be total revenue, it could be margin. So by building this sort of structure, we've got a very flexible tool, which I can look at net prices by product, by country, by segment, all sorts of the different dimensions that we talked about before. And this is just an example of the same thing. So here we've changed the axis to be the invoice discount versus the quantity sold. So here we've got a very peculiar customer over here. The biggest customer by far has no discount. We've got lots of little customers with quite high discounts. So why is that? And this is just an example of trending. So this is using the date function so we can understand what are the trends by date. So I've just got a little case study just to finish off with. So about using this data. Once you've got this database created and helping, and again, this is about level 2 pricing, about putting some controls, some processes in place, fixing some outliers, fixing some of that unfair pricing. So this chemical company, B2B chemical company, turnover £350 million, and they've got a net profit of 28 million, so about 7 or 8% net profit. And so they went through this process of implementing pricing tools, waterfalls, dispersions, and that type of analysis. And from that, they were able to identify a £5 million upside through a consistency and fairness initiative. So that was just purely, as we saw in the charts before, where you've got a lot of small customers, very big discounts, just historically been sat there on those discounts, no challenge. Obviously, there's a process of identifying which of those ones are the ones you could approach. Exclude the strategic ones, of course, and just make that some not huge changes to their pricing, but either negotiate with them to get more volume back out of them for the prices that have been given, or just adjust their prices up 5-6%. So they identified 5 million upside from that. Rebalancing of discounts and incentives. So this is what I was talking about. Once you've made those discounts and incentives visible, you can start to say, are we really getting value for money from these? We keep giving this guy this a discount up front. It doesn't encourage him to give us more volume. Why don't we put him on a target to the end of the year? Give him a little bit more, just see if we can get some more volume out of him. So actually looking at those discounts and rebates, rebalancing how the money was being spent, delivered a £2 million upside. And then the next area, the smaller upside, was just looking at applying existing terms and conditions. So things like where, in reality, for some historical reason, maybe delivery costs have been, charges have been waived. Customers weren't actually complying with the contractual terms they'd already got. So these three things were sort of, the company felt confident to do this. They identified the opportunities and felt confident to do it because they had good data to support them. There's also a process of taking the sales teams through these opportunities, maybe identifying them the ones that don't threaten volume too much, and then implementation. But the starting point is having good data to understand where the opportunities are. And so they've got an £8 million upside, which is a 28% improvement in net profit. So just to summarise, so establishing the true net price underpins both strategic and tactical pricing decisions. So it really gives you that confidence to move forward. It's an important step in building those pricing capabilities. If you remember the 5 steps that I took you through, if you haven't got this sort of basic capability to understand your prices, it's very hard to move out from, well, it establishes you at level 2, but it also supports you through the next level, so the pricing for value and price optimization. We recommend building the analysis from the lowest level of transaction, so right down to invoice level data, because it enables you then to slice and dice the data in many ways. And reconciling this data is key to getting internal buy-in, or else you could, as you get further down the process, have some obstacles in your way, and just investing the time in getting it right, really understanding where those discounts and adjustments come from. And just finally, there can be some really big returns. So if you remember the chart I talked about with the 1%, we talk about the power of 1%. Well, this type of initiative, we believe, delivers between 2 and 5%. So that concludes my presentation. So I'd be happy to take some questions. I've got a few up on the screen, but please add some more as we go along. I've got one question about how long does it take? Well, it's like that, how long is a piece of string? But we can sort of say that this type of process can take, between, say, 6 and 12 weeks on average. It depends very much on the how the organisation works, how they, making people available to take them through the process. I've got a question about, can you support the selection of the tool? That is one of our areas of one of our offers, actually. We help organisations look for pricing tools. Those pricing tools might be something like a BI tool, or there are pricing softwares in the market. So we help organisations understand whether they're ready for that step, actually to go and buy a pricing tool, and also the process of selecting the right one and maybe and the implementation. I've got a question. It's a little bit different to the other questions, which is, where should pricing sit in the organisation? Which is actually a good question, and we get asked that question a lot. Pricing, in a lot of organisations, it sits in finance. Sometimes it sits in marketing. Sometimes it's an independent. Some of the more advanced companies with more advanced pricing, it actually sits as a department on its own and even reports to the CEO. But it depends where you are on that five levels. We see, accountants make great level 2 prices, but then when you move to level 3, which is about pricing for value, they need a different skill set. So it very much depends on where the organisation is on that, on those 5 steps to pricing excellence. I've got a question about, can it help identify segments? You can actually see sometimes in the data, when you do those types of dispersion analysis, you can sometimes see patterns, and those patterns are driven sometimes by maybe the industry, where they're less sensitive to the price because maybe it's a smaller part of their value chain and things like that. And so sometimes in the data, it can actually help you with level 3 type initiatives because you can see some of the data there. Okay. Well, thank you very much to everybody. If you've got any questions, you can contact me direct. I think my contact details will be with the, we're going to be sending out the presentation, and my contact details will be on there. So thanks very much for your time.